negotiation would default into Commonwealth, which I believe was part of the bills as filed the last two sessions that they were filed. The sponsor of the bill, Senator Rodriguez, said exactly the opposite, so I'm trying to get clarification on whether or not a loggerheads results in the Commonwealth in this bill making the decision, or whether that is like what the Senator said, which is there's no contract if it's voted in.
Well, I think there's, my understanding, I'm certainly not an expert in all the aspects of the law, but my understanding is that if a community denies a cable franchise, there's an appeal to that to the Commonwealth. And you know, frankly, their previous effort was actually to have statewide franchising. That's what they wanted. They wanted the state regulators to establish the franchises for the communities. This is a subtler way of doing that, I think, perhaps, by saying, you've got 90 days, and if you don't do it, if you deny it, then you know, then it goes elsewhere, and elsewhere is to the regulatory apparatus in the Commonwealth. I think it's also important to note, and I think it's been said here, there has never been a denial of a Verizon franchise application. It may take longer than they would like. It may take more resources than they would like. If we can simplify that together, Commonwealth, the communities, and the companies, we're all ears to you know, to participate in that kind of process. But this unbalances, in my opinion, this unbalances the negotiation strategy, and it unbalances it in favor of the companies.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayors, thank you for your testimony today, and members of the panel here before us. My cable executive director, Shelley Wolf, is here from Fitchburg Access TV. It's a very, very important component to the community. As one of your constituents, or children of your constituents, said, it's a boring station. For some people in Fitchburg, it's must-see TV. It certainly is. I get very anxious whenever this bill comes up. This is the second time that I've had the, I don't know if pleasure is the right term, but to have this come before this committee once again. I guess, may occur to Tony, if you had 90 days is too short a time frame. Is 6 months or a year? I mean, I just need some sense as to, or should we leave it wide open the way it has been? And I might add, it's working. And so I'm inclined to say, why fix it? But your thoughts on that, please.
For you, chairs, thank you for the question. It's not one size fits all. I mean, I can move license quicker in my community because of resources and capacity I have than some other cities and towns. I don't think you can prescribe a number. I think those are the type of conversations in terms of efficiency which we offer to provide. If you can help improve the process, we don't reach our goals, what we accomplish here, our control, or everyone being at the table, we're all ears. But it's not 90, it's not 6 months, it's not 10 months. I don't think I can give you a right answer. Every community is different. And we can probably do it in 90. We do it pretty fast. And some of them we've done two of them, and pretty extensive ones. But it'd be hard for me to give you a number. There's no easy number. There's no one size fits all. But those are the type of conversations to the chairs which are important to have, which you often have with Verizon and everybody in the industry to say, can we make the system, which does work? It's not broken. They can always step back after you, but can we make it more efficient?
Thank you. I agree with it. That's what the negotiation process, as far as I'm concerned, is to make the community access process more effective, more efficient, more desirable, to make it less boring, get more people to tune in. I know my public access station is state of the art, and that's compliments to the cable providers, the cable companies. I mean, they're required by federal statute to provide those resources. But again, we make the best of what we get, and we need that leverage to be able to negotiate and not under any time constraints. So I support your position as well. And thank you for your testimony today as well. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a very concise question, and perhaps it isn't in its own way, but when you're looking at 90 days and you now have a deadline to meet, what is the nut of the negotiation? What are you negotiating? And have there ever been benchmarks attempted where all towns are given what they need in terms of their cable cable needs, especially those towns that may not have the resources to negotiate at a more robust level as, say, a city might be able to?
Well, as a town of 25,000, we have some resources, certainly more than a community of a couple of thousand. But we had to provide special counsel to work with us on the negotiation. And again, I'll recognize that because we had first franchise negotiated with Verizon, maybe it was a little tougher than the 30th or the 100th. But we spent an inordinate amount of time negotiating over changes that Verizon was interested in languages in the federal statute. For example, they wanted a different definition of cable service. It's in the federal statute. They wanted that. We spent a huge amount of time negotiating over that. Interestingly, the financial deal was done very quickly in terms of what they were supporting for PEG access, and capital improvements, and so forth. Yeah, that was probably done in 30 days. But the contracts, these franchise agreements are 75 pages long, and every bit of that language is important to one side or the other. So that was our experience. Financial deal was done fairly quickly. The negotiation over things that, in the case of Verizon, that Verizon wanted were very lengthy. There's also, in our experience, especially when you have two providers, is neither of them wants to be disadvantaged by their franchise agreement, and in fact, they want to be advantaged. So, one of them has 3% for PEG access, and the other one wants to go to 2% for PEG access. And part of the challenge in negotiation is to make sure that from the community's perspective and the Community Access Corporation's perspective, you're moving forward, you're not stepping back. The company want to step back. So that's our experience.
I would just add to both of those comments, I guess out of full disclosure, I'll explain prior to being state representative of Salem, I was a city solicitor in Salem for a couple of different years and negotiated a local contract. And I have to say it's a little frustrating for me also as a good Democrat. I see no reason why government can't be efficient. Maybe it's not 90 days, but I don't think it's 360 days because a lot of these contracts, there's a lot of vanilla boilerplate information in there, and I know every community is a little bit different, and you may have to negotiate those minor differences in various communities, but 360 days or years seems awful long, and certainly in recent weeks we've heard Mayor Menino want to enhance competition in his city of Boston for cable access, and it's not, I don't call it the Verizon bill, I'm calling anybody that wants to come into your community ought to know you're going to respond within a certain period of time. That's, I think, the thrust of the bill. And if you don't want to negotiate with them, don't negotiate.
Okay. So 2 points. One is our constituents want us to negotiate with them. So we have our own local pressure wanting to, people want competition. So I think just as you have pressure from your constituents, we have our own pressure. So there's a built-in advantage to us to negotiate as expeditiously as possible, and I'm not sure that needs to be legislated. That's one issue. Secondly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the state legislature defined expedited permitting as a level of 180 days for planning permits. So
I'm not saying 90 is the right date.
What I'm saying is, again, they've gotten franchises in every community that they want to go to, every single one. Maybe some of them took a little longer than they want. Maybe some of them were shorter than they thought they were going to take. I think they've been trying to leverage the process to, on the definition side, to try to get some definitions that maybe you're not able to get at the legislative level. And I'm not sure that's particularly fair to communities. So, again, I think it's important for them to sit down with the local officials and talk about how this would work. But to legislate, to step outside and legislate it when nobody can say that this is particularly broken, I don't think is fair. And I don't want to be mistaken as somebody who thinks we should have regulation for regulation's sake. I don't think we should have regulation that something's not broken. And I don't think this is broken.
Any other questions? We've also been joined by Representative Chan and Representative Timothy. I think we have no more comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to call it the next panel.